Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Today we're tackling something absolutely critical in computer science and object-oriented programming. We're talking about encapsulation and information hiding. Honestly, if you want to write code that doesn't just instantly break, code that's actually secure, and, code that other developers won't hate working with, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to break down exactly how to protect your data and structure your programs the right way.
So I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. What if anyone, literally anywhere, could directly access and just edit a bank's raw internal ledger? Imagine if you could just open up a text file, find your name, and, casually add a few zeros to your bank balance. No checks, no rules, no security whatsoever. Well, in the real physical world, that would cause absolute, catastrophic financial chaos, right?
Okay, let's dive into this, because that exact same chaos happens in software development when we don't build proper boundaries into our code. Without rules, any random part of a program can just carelessly change data. You end up with bank balances manually altered to negative millions, or student objects storing impossible exam scores like a -20. And it leads to these bizarre, impossible-to-trace bugs, mostly because data is being messed with from 100 different places at once. The code becomes wildly insecure and just a total nightmare to maintain.
To fix this, we need structured object-oriented programming. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the danger of open access. Second, encapsulation versus information hiding. Third, public and private members. Fourth, controlling state with methods. And finally, why limiting access matters.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the danger of open access. Let's really establish what happens when our code completely lacks boundaries.
Think about an ATM. When you go to make a deposit, you're requesting a safe, very specific action through a highly controlled interface. That is safe control. Unsafe control, well, that would be bypassing the ATM entirely, taking a crowbar to the bank's back door, and rewriting the internal ledger yourself. As users, we should only ever interact with safe actions. We should never, ever touch the raw internal data directly. And guess what? Software objects should work the exact same way.
Moving right along to Section 2, encapsulation versus information hiding. These are our two hero concepts today. They're definitely related, but they are absolutely not the same thing. First up, let's define encapsulation. Basically, this means bundling data, which we usually call attributes, along with the methods that operate on that data, straight into one single class. It's the overall design idea of combining state and behavior. So, for example, if you create a bank account class, encapsulation is the act of putting both the balance data and the deposit method together inside that one blueprint. They travel together as a single neat unit, like a capsule.
Now, information hiding is the specific protection mechanism inside that design. It means restricting access to the internal details so users of the class interact only through a controlled interface. Because we group the data and methods together using encapsulation, we can now use information hiding to basically say, hey, outside code must use our deposit method, and it is entirely restricted from changing the balance directly.
Seriously, if you're taking an exam on this, or if you're out there writing production software, this quote right here is the absolute key idea to remember. A well-designed class hides internal details and exposes only safe ways to use the object. Memorize this. It is literally the golden rule of object-oriented design. Which brings us to Section 3, public and private members. Let's look at the actual mechanics of how we build this. We build our defense system using what we call access modifiers. Public members, well, they can be accessed from outside the class. They form the visible interface of the object, the safe methods, like deposit, that you actually want other code to call. Contrast that with private members, which can only be accessed inside the class itself. Outside code cannot see it, cannot change it, perfectly locking down your important internal data. Visually, in a language like Java, you might expose a public deposit method that anyone can use, while keeping a private balance variable locked down tight. Now, it's worth noting, actually, if you program in Python, the language doesn't strictly enforce private and public the exact same rigid way Java does. But great Python programmers still use conventions, like throwing double underscores in front of a variable name, to hide information and signal to other developers, hey, this is internal, please do not touch this directly.
Section 4, controlling state with methods. Let's see the actual power of what we've just built.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we use getters, setters, and validation rules to act as, basically, bouncers for our data. Look at a weak design, a student object that carelessly allows outside code to set a test score to -20. I mean, obviously, a negative exam score is completely absurd. It's an impossible, invalid state. But in a safer design, we make the score private and force the outside code to use a set_score method. This method acts as our bouncer. It checks, is the value between 0 and 100? If yes, it saves it. If no, it rejects it entirely. Boom, we've just protected the object.
Think about a simple rectangle object to really reinforce this concept. A weak design might allow a programmer to set its width to -5. But come on, how can a physical rectangle possibly have a negative width? It can't. By improving our design, we make the width private, forcing the programmer to use a method that checks for positive values first before making any changes. The object manages its own data safely. No impossible shapes allowed.
Let's trace this bank account out in real time. We start with a balance of 100. When we call our public deposit method for 40, it validates the amount is positive, adds it up, and our balance safely becomes 140. When we call withdraw for 20, it checks that we have enough funds, subtracts the money, and our balance drops to 120. But what happens if someone tries to withdraw 500? Well, because our balance is strictly hidden and protected by our methods, the withdrawal method recognizes we only have 120 and outright rejects the action. The balance stays safely at 120. That impossible state is completely blocked.
And finally, Section 5. Why limiting access matters. Let's review the 4 main pillars of why we do all of this.
So the crucial point is that this creates dramatically better software across 4 main pillars. First up, integrity. As we just saw, objects can completely prevent impossible or invalid states, like that ridiculous negative score. Second, security. Sensitive data isn't just exposed freely. Users only access safe methods. Third is maintenance. You can actually change the internal private code later to be faster or more efficient, and as long as your public methods stay the same, you won't break the code for anyone else using your class. And fourth, clarity. Other developers know exactly which methods they're supposed to use, making your classes incredibly easy to reuse and test.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. Think about the apps on your phone right now, your smart home devices, your email accounts. If encapsulation is working flawlessly to protect objects behind the scenes in all that code, where else in your daily digital life are you relying on information hiding without even knowing it? Software design is literally all around us, keeping chaos at bay through these clever boundaries. Keep exploring, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.